Hey everyone, it's VM Campos, movie fan. Welcome to the first ever TV watching party. So, if you normally check me out, I stream every Saturday at 8 p.m. on Saturdays, and that's usually Magic Gameplay. Today, we're going to do something different. We're going to watch a scary movie together. I see people coming into the chat now. Say hello. If you're in the chat, hello to you on YouTube and hello to you on Twitch. Thanks everyone for coming to hang out. So we're going to watch a movie. Here's some disclaimers. The movie we're going to watch is a work of public domain, which means no one owns it according to US copyright law. So it is totally legitimate for me to broadcast this movie. It is a public domain movie. So very few movies you can do this. Don't do this. Don't stream your favorite episode of The Mandalorian. You're going to get shut down. You're going to get a copyright strike. You have to know what you're doing, such as streaming public domain movies that are not owned by anyone. And it's an interesting behind-the-scenes note. Why is this movie public domain when most of them are not? They forgot to copyright it. But anyway, that's the disclaimer there, and I'll probably mention it as the movie goes on. But the plan is to watch this movie and to talk about it and to have fun with it and to be scared with it and be alone together during the pandemic and just to hang out and watch a classic movie that really defined the genre. So I'm probably going to be pausing it, rewinding it, raising and lowering the volume and all of that. Ask questions there in the chat. We'll hang out and do all of that fun stuff. So I'm going to start it off here. This is George A. Romero's Night of the Living Dead. It is in black and white. Don't let that deter you. It's from 1968. It is an amazing movie if you haven't seen it. It basically started the zombie genre. And you think a movie that is 60 years old might not be as relevant as it could be. It is completely relevant. It really started all of the things that we know about zombies. It starts off right here with a car approaching us, very haunting music. Night of the Living Dead. That's an amazing title right there. It actually had two titles before this. It was called Night of Anubis and Night of the Flesh Eaters. And this is why it's not copyrighted. They forgot, after they changed the title again, they forgot to put the copyright notice on the film. And at that time, if you didn't have a copyright notice, you were not copyrighted and anyone could share your movie. So we've got a car driving out in the countryside. How are you doing there, Stevie? If I haven't said hello yet, hello to you. So we have a car driving out in the countryside or something. Very haunting music so far. Building up, obviously little by little to something. As I said, I'm going to be lowering and raising the volume. If the volume doesn't sound good, let me know, of course. Cemetery entrance. That's what that sign says. Cemetery entrance. And it's all shot up with bullets, which is to show you this is happening in the countryside. They're going to a cemetery where all good horror movies happen, of course. And there's a lot of symbolism in this movie. This is 1968, the height of the Vietnam War. Here's an American flag in the cemetery. A lot of dead people, not only in horror movies, but in life. In the news, we were seeing a lot of death from the war going on. And here's this classic car.
They ought to make the day the time changes, the first day of summer.
What?
So there's the first characters, Barbara and Johnny, and they're talking about daylight savings time in 1968, which of course is something that we deal with nowadays. It was around the time movies and shows were transitioning to color. I think, there was already color TV shows and movies at this time, but they were a low budget group of filmmakers, so it was a lot more economically viable for them to make the movie in black and white. They just couldn't afford color. But that's a very good point there.
Wreath on the grave in 6 hours to drive back and forth. Mother wants to remember, so we trot 200 miles into the country and she stays at home.
So Barbara and Johnny are brother and sister. They're going to their father's grave out in the, out in the countryside, 200 miles out of the city. He's like complaining, like, why do we need to do this? Mom doesn't even. Oh, I have to do one thing here. I have to turn off the other music because the other music is not playing. Never mind. There we go. So they go out to the cemetery to go put one of these "We Remember," on the gravestone, and it's very atmospheric. Again, amazing music. Handheld camera. It gives it a very gritty, realistic look to it, compared with shots that are on a tripod. It's just something creepy. It's just something so creepy about like a black and white movie at a cemetery. And look, the camera's far away to kind of get the shot of everything. It's shot in the original Academy ratio, the square scene. Do you like my TV? My little TV image right there so we can see it? So they found their father's grave.
I wonder what happened to the one from last year. Each year we spend good money on these things. We come out here and the one from last year's gone.
So Johnny's kind of a jerk at the beginning of the movie here. He doesn't want to go see his father's grave. He's complaining about... He puts the memorial wreath there, and every year it disappears. Like, who stole it? And I bet someone takes it and then polishes it off and sells it to the next sucker. So, like, he's totally like, I don't even want to be here. Barbara's a little bit more respectful. There she is praying.
Hey, come on, Barb. Church was this morning, huh?
And then there's, like, angry thunder, foreshadowing. Oh, there's a guy right there just at the cemetery going to see the rest of his loved ones. Yep, just a normal guy over there. So anyway, Barbara and Johnny are the two main characters.
Hey, I mean, praying's for church, huh?
What a jerk. So...
Seen you in church lately.
Well, not much sense in my going to church.
So Barbara and Johnny are out there going to the...
Right over there. I jumped out at you from behind the tree, and Grandpa got all excited, and he shook his fist at me, and he said, "Boy, you'll be damned to hell."
They're talking about his grandpa and how Johnny liked to scare Barbara in the cemetery. Well, everyone's going to be scared at a cemetery. Raise your hand if you're not scared when you're at the cemetery.
Stop it now, I mean it.
Yeah, so she's getting a little bit freaked out.
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
Oh, classic line right there.
You're ignorant.
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
Stop it. You're acting like a child.
They're coming for you. Look, there comes one of them now.
Leave that guy alone.
There he comes now. I'm getting out of here.
Johnny.
They're just fooling around at the cemetery. Just good, clean fun at the cemetery. And sorry to this old guy that they... Wait a minute, what? Oh, this is the very first zombie right here. The very first zombie in cinema. Kind of. And then the music. Oh man, look at that. It's so vicious. Oh, that acting. That's like totally real acting. So obviously the acting nowadays comparatively... Oh, Johnny, watch out. He just hit his head against the concrete there. And then the zombie's like, you're next. Oh, this music. And then here we have a classic running from the antagonist. Look at that. This is just beautiful in black and white. This music haunts my nightmares. So she's got to get away. She's going to go to the car. But Johnny has the keys. So she's got to lock herself in the car. Now, there is a different thing here. nowadays we kind of really know the zombies as like slow moving, falling apart. This is one thing that, yes, this original zombie movie doesn't really get it right. He's a little too animated. He's too intelligent. Look at this. He picks up a rock. Now, this was a real stunt. That was a real glass, a real rock. The trivia will tell you that he almost actually hit the real cameraman and killed him. But anyway, in the movie, this zombie, he must be newly dead. That's how we can retcon it. That's how we can have it in our head canon. This guy recently died. That's why he's still kind of strong. But there's a couple of things in the movie that, like, it's not like modern zombie movies. Yes, they are slow moving. Yes, they are decomposing and so forth. But the first zombie that we see here, he is a little bit more animated than the ones that we will know of in the future. He actually used a tool. He used a rock to try to break into the car. So a scene like that, that's like still like, even if this is a 60-year-old movie, that's scary right there. Like this guy like coming to kill you and completely alone out in the woods, running away, barefoot, and then at the turning around, like, is he still coming? Is he still coming? And then you see in the background there, yes, he's still coming. He's still coming after you, and she's like, she has to run. This is still 60 years later. An amazing movie. So she sees a house and a distance for help. Getting closer to the house for some safety, and then the music just pounding. Like, please let me in, they're coming to kill me. I listened to the soundtrack by itself as well. It's really good, even without the visuals. Oh, I love that shot right there. Still coming. I listened to the soundtrack by itself also on dark and stormy nights, and I don't recommend it. It is scary. There's a lot of great like film noir style of photography or chiaroscuro style of photography here. Just shadows. Like, look at this. She's stuck in a beam of light. Everything else is just shadows. The music changes to a little bit more pensive, not so over the top like death is coming for you. It kind of changes a little bit, and just looking around this house, this is still, look at those shadows there, the cinematography of things. She finally gets her wits about her, like, I need to defend myself. She goes off to get a knife, one of these knives. Wandering the house a little bit. What else is in this house? Whose house is this? Am I safe here? Am I not? So I'm curious, everyone hanging out in the chat, how many of you have ever heard of this movie before? Let me know there in the chat. How many of you have heard of this movie, Night of the Living Dead? There was a remake, of course. There's been 2 remakes of this, I believe. This was the first one, so you have heard of it. What about watching it? Have you ever watched the original? Kind of unnecessary scares about like all of these stuffed animal heads. Caught up with her. The zombie must feast. Now again, here's an example about like, okay, a little too intelligent here. But besides this, the movie does a very good job of having like the classic zombie tropes of what we're used to. No phone. Okay, now again, this is 60 years ago. There's no cell phones. There's a home phone, but the home phone doesn't work, so she cannot call for help. Don't forget that knife, Barbara. Now, it's not just one zombie. Now here's 2. So here comes the swarm. again, a trope of zombie movies nowadays. Okay, now there's not just one, there's more than one, and we know in modern zombie lore, more than one, that's not good. So okay, time to go upstairs. Time to go upstairs to like protect yourself up there on higher ground. Oh, but there's a corpse of like the original occupants of the house, totally face eaten off. Again, this is 1968. This is like some of the most hardcore violence horror that you'll see at this time. She's totally freaking out. Got to get out of here. There's some vehicle, and then there's the other main character, Ben. He shows up, and he's like, "Let's get out of here. We'll be safe inside."
It's all right.
So one of the many revolutionary many revolutionary things about this movie is here we have actually okay. So we saw Barbara and Johnny at the beginning, main characters. Barbara and Johnny got separated, so we're with Barbara. The revolutionary thing is that one of the other main characters is Ben, an African American man. 1968. We were 3 years after the Civil Rights Act of 1965, trying to get more equality in the United States, and it wasn't yet a big thing about having people of color as the main character. They were subordinate characters and so forth. But here, Romero, the director, has a main character, Ben, African American, and he's going to take on the role of a strong lead character in this genre movie, this zombie movie. So very revolutionary at its time for the message of the movie, the main characters. There had been zombies before, but this is the first that they really do it in terms of like reanimated corpses coming back from the grave. Zombies used to be more like possessed people that were still alive, coming back, controlled by someone else. Ooh, the blood dripping from the corpse upstairs. Shocking. So again, the movie like does a lot of great things that nowadays in the zombie genre we're so used to. Here we are like, okay, the main characters, we've got to protect ourselves. We've got to put together a secure position. Let's check what our weapons are. Let's get our tools ready. Let's get in here. Here's another example of like the zombies being too intelligent. They're destroying the light source of the car.
There are 2 of them out there. Have you seen any more around here? I can take care of those 2. I know you're afraid, but we have to.
I don't know. What's happening?
Okay, so it's time to battle some zombies right here. Again, it's a little too intelligent, but it's breaking the light. Oh man, some of this makeup, even though it's old, it's so good. Look at that. They totally smashed him in the head, and then here's another one coming at you. Whoa. He has to beat it to undeath, and the next one's coming. Again, like the slow-moving nature of it, this was always around. Even nowadays, we have this slow-moving nature of the zombies, and then this is so scary. The door pops open and there's another animated corpse coming in, and you've just got to keep your eye on them. There's Barbara. She's all like freaking out, like I can't believe what is going on, and she's freaking out. Ben has to go take care of 2 of them out there, and this is just like even like this scary. George Romero playing in his own film. I find that epic. I don't remember if he was in the film. I know he's been in the sequels, but he probably was in the original because it was a small crew. And then look at that shot right there. There's one behind you. Watch out. This even even like with the melodramatic aspect of it, it's still very affecting. Ooh, bend your weapon. So George Romero, in his crew in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, put this movie together, very low budget, just like a ragtag group of independent film creators. Obviously, this movie very controversial, very violent at the time, unrated. At the time, there would have only been, R ratings and so forth. The highest rating of all was the X rating, which was different than what we know what it is nowadays. But this was released unrated. Oh, this was released unrated because it was just like so violent, so scary and bleak. Look at that now. There's even more of them coming at them. So got to lock things up in there. There's like these bursts in the film, like most genre films, about a lot of action and then a lull in things to calm things down a little bit, and then action again.
Don't look at it.
Shots like that look really good. You see all this shadow on her face and her like shocked expression. So there's still more of them coming. They're relentless. That was something that was established from the beginning, that they just add up. They just keep coming at you. Once they're reanimated, they're just going to be an onslaught. There's a lot of great history and a lot of great trivia in this movie. I encourage people to check out the entry on Wikipedia or Internet Movie Database about, the low budget that it was, the people behind it. They used to make, TV commercials, and they're like, let's make a movie. I think we can make a movie. Let's get rich on making movies. And they thought, well, what's a good kind of movie to make? I know, a horror movie. Everyone loves those. Those make lots of money. Let's make a horror movie. We don't have a lot of money. How do we make a movie? So they have, just this main set. They have this house, and it's like, let's dress people up like corpses, and that's going to be it. That's going to be the set. That's the idea. We're going to take this concept of zombies that had existed before, but we're going to change it up a little bit. So you looked it up, and it says they use chocolate syrup. Exactly. You cannot tell because it's in black and white. You cannot tell that what the blood is. So putting it in black and white, chocolate syrup, that'll look like that'll look like blood. So in the beginning, they have to prepare the house.
Look, I know you're afraid. I'm afraid too. But we have to try to board the house up together. Now, I'm going to board up the windows and the doors. Do you understand? We'll be all right here. We'll be all right here until someone comes to rescue us. But we'll have to work together.
So it's the classic plot. Well, it's classic nowadays, of course, but back then, we've got to all work together. She's like very scared and such, but he's going to take charge, and let's board up the house. Let's prepare ourselves here. We'll be okay. So you mainly go to IMDb as well as find a more trusted site than Wiki, especially since they're better on updates. Yeah, wherever you can find the info, those are the main places that I would go to. I always read the Wikipedia article first, and then go to the Internet Movie Database and read all about it there. It's just fascinating to see just the behind-the-scenes info all about all of our favorite movies. Now, it is a little bit slow at times, definitely. And this main character, Barbara, she's kind of like, she's just like shocked out of her senses about like what is going on. I think this was a realistic depiction of things. Like if this was really happening, I think some people would be like, okay, let's get things done, let's prepare. Other people would be completely shocked out of their minds. and I think that's a realistic depiction of like what would happen. Even though the movie's 60 years old, even though the movie's black and white, even though the special effects are not what we're used to today, I think it still really, really holds up. I think it's still a really good movie, really good music. Acting is very good. It laid down the foundation of a lot of future movies. There are things that could be improved in the movie. The movie has been remade a couple of times, one in 1990 by Tom Savini, who worked on the sequels of these movies, and then one in the 2010s or 2000s or something. So it has been remade, although this original one is the best one. This had 2 sequels. So this is from 1968, and then it had a sequel in 1978 called Dawn of the Dead. So this was Night of the Living Dead. The tagline was, "They won't stay dead." And then the sequel, Dawn of the Dead, its tagline was, "When there is no more room in hell, the dead will walk the earth." That one was in color. It was in 1978. It was a sequel after the timeline of this one. It was basically happening in a mall, so the survivors are stuck in a mall. Then there was a sequel to that. That was in 1985. That was Day of the Dead. The subtitle for that one was "The Darkest Day of Horror the World Has Ever Known." All 3 of them are very good. All 3 of them are very different. They all have interesting plots. They're all about, zombie outbreak and survivors and so forth. This was the first one that really kind of started the genre. The second one was on a larger scale. It played upon the ideas of, okay, we're a group of survivors. We're going to defend ourselves inside of a mall. We're going to take over this mall. We're going to have everything that we need here in this mall to try to keep out the dead, and we'll survive together. But then in there, the biggest problem isn't the rest of the dead, but it's like a roving gang of bikers that wants to take the mall from them. So while the world is falling apart with the dead, there's still people versus people. On the third one, Day of the dead have so overwhelmed the living that there's like very few people surviving, and the main characters, it's different characters on every one of the plots. On the third one, it's a group of scientists and soldiers in an underground base trying to figure out how do we even stop this. And so the world gets worse and worse as the zombie epidemic continues.
I guess the driver must have cut off the road into that gas station by Beekman's Diner.
So here Ben is talking about how did he get to the farm. He was driving around, and like he started to see what are these weird people? Why are they attacking each other? Why are they all going crazy? And he's just recollecting what happened before he got to the house there. Because if you remember, Barbara's at the farmhouse, and then Ben shows up and like takes charge. And so here he's remembering. I like his acting so much. It's like affecting him.
Backing away from it. I looked back at the diner to see if there was anyone there who could help me. It was when I noticed that the entire place had been encircled.
So I think this actor does a very, very good job. I think his name is Dwayne Johnson. Hey, Mark, how are you doing? We started the movie, and we're watching here. Ben is trying to take charge of the situation. The zombies are starting to surround the house. Barbara is still feeling like overwhelmed at this situation. And Ben is recalling, how did he make it to the farmhouse?
Just plowed right through them. They didn't move. They didn't run or just stood there staring at me.
So this movie is revolutionary in a variety of ways. Like I said, this is one of the first American films that had an African American man as the lead, as the main character. That wasn't really done in American cinema, even up to 1968. It's a long story of equality that this nation has gone through, and even in this point, 1968, it wasn't common to have an African American man or any person of color really as like the main character. And here we have Ben, the main character. He's taking charge. He's not like a scared subordinate character. He's taking charge of the situation. There's like some sort of epidemic of monsters here. Let's board up this house. Let's prepare it. Let's take care of ourselves.
And he said, "Oh, it's late. Why did we start so late?" And I said, "Johnny, if you'd gotten up earlier, we wouldn't be late."
So Barbara is recalling her and her brother Johnny going to the cemetery to visit her father's grave, and suddenly this stuff happened and they got separated, and then she met with Ben at the farmhouse.
He kept teasing me and saying, "He's coming to get you, Barbara." And I laughed at him and said, "Johnny, stop it." And then Johnny ran away.
So thanks everyone for coming to hang out as we watch the movie here. As anyone else there? I see a lot of people coming into the chat. Thank you so much for visiting. We're doing the Alone Together movie showing. This is if you're just joining, this is a public domain movie. This movie in the US is not copyrighted. No one owns it. And it's public domain, so that means it's free to broadcast. That's why I'm able to do so. Obviously, you're not able to do this with Star Wars or any real movie, which are all copyrighted. This one's not copyrighted. They accidentally didn't copyright it. This movie used to have a couple of names in the beginning. It was called Night of Anubis and Night of the Flesh Eaters, and they changed it to finally Night of the Living Dead, and then they forgot to copyright it. So they removed the copyright notice accidentally. So this is a work of public domain. That's why I'm able to broadcast it. So YouTube, calm down, slow your roll. It's totally okay that I'm broadcasting this, especially on my old classic TV. Do y'all like that? Do you like us watching this old movie on an old TV? So it's a classic of horror movies. It really started the genre, 1968. There had obviously been horror movies since the beginning of cinema in the 1900s. But this is one of the classic ones here. Very revolutionary.
Please.
Don't you know what's going on out there? This is no Sunday school picnic.
Don't you understand? My brother is alone.
Your brother is dead.
No! My brother is not dead.
So it was clearly a different time in history. And there she is, like, my brother's out there, please let's save him. And he's like, your brother is dead. And then so she freaks out, and then he freaks out, and he has to knock her out. You can hardly hear the movie, but you're coming in loud and clear. Yeah, I'm kind of turning it up and down as the movie progresses, but if I turn it all the way up like this, I'm usually turning it up and down because obviously if we leave the movie full volume, then we might not hear my insightful commentary. But I'll be turning it up and down. So look at that old-time radio. That's the only way to communicate. And look at that shadow of the microphone up on top also.
Because of the obvious threat to untold numbers of citizens, and because of the crisis which is even now developing, this radio station will remain on the air day and night. This station.
So one of the tropes of this movie that started future movies is like, okay, they have to check in what's happening with civilization, so they turn on the radio to hear what's going on, and that's where a little bit of the exposition happens, like what else is going on in the world. They have it with the radio.
Cities, rural homes, and suburbs with no apparent pattern or reason for the slayings. It seems to be a sudden, general explosion of mass homicide. We have some
So in the news, they still don't know what's going on. Like the zombie epidemic just started. The news is still reporting like there's just like an explosion of violence, and who knows what's going on. And there's reports of this happening. Shots like that are still scary 60 years later. Like wandering corpses in the darkness. I don't care what you say. Stuff like that is still scary. Now, hopefully, you have all the lights on, just like me, and your door's locked when you watch this movie. But don't worry, we'll get through it together. So the early parts of this plot are like, okay, the characters coming together. There was Barbara and Johnny at the cemetery. They got separated. And then Barbara goes to this farmhouse. And then Ben shows up there as well. And he's like really taking charge. And it's like, let's protect what we've got here. Let's board up all the doors. Let's turn on the radio. Let's see what's going on. Let's defend ourselves. Do not venture outside until the nature of this crisis. Is that still prescient 60 years later? So this movie doesn't call them zombies. That term wasn't used in this film. They called them ghouls. But obviously they are the zombies that we know about today. And even from the beginning, fire will help you. The voices of the dead.
Ladies and gentlemen, we've just received word that the president has called a meeting of his cabinet to deal with the sudden epidemic of murder which has seized the eastern...
Sudden epidemic of murder. So how many of you in the chat there? Hello, how's everyone doing? Thanks for visiting. How many of you there had actually seen the movie before? It's been around 60 years, but not everyone's seen it, of course. This movie has been deemed culturally significant by the U.S. Library of Commerce. It is one of the movies that is preserved in the United States Library of Commerce. So even after the end times, all of the stuff hidden in that vault, this movie's in there because it was one of these valuable movies to preserve.
Join their facilities in an emergency network to bring you this news as it develops. We urge you to stay tuned to radio and TV and to stay indoors at all costs. Late reports reaching this newsroom tell of frightened people seeking refuge in churches, schools, and government buildings, demanding shelter.
So I don't remember when I first saw this movie, but it's a very affecting movie. It's at any age that you see it, I think you can get something from it. If you're young, it's scary. If you're a little bit more grown up, there's some very thought-provoking things in it. And then, of course, no spoilers until we get to it. The ending is cool. And this movie has been a touchstone of horror cinema for decades. You weren't born yet. Yet, definitely. Neither was I. But they run it on TV and it's on festivals and all that good stuff. So there's plenty of chance to see it. But with so many movies to watch and so much to binge watch and things to enjoy, sometimes people don't get around to everything. So if you're coming to hang out with me, I totally appreciate it. We'll watch this movie together. We'll talk all about it. Any questions or comments about it also, let's talk about it. If you haven't done so, I would also recommend you check out the Internet Movie Database or Wikipedia articles. Just a lot of fascinating detail about it. One thing about it was that, so the director is George A. Romero. He kind of got stuck as a director of horror movies. He wanted to do more than that, but that he embraced it enough. He did a lot of horror movies throughout his time, and he died like in 2012, 2014, 2016, somewhere around there. And he was most well known for horror movies. He did this one, he did the sequel, Dawn of the Dead, then the sequel to that, Day of the Dead. Then after that was Land of the Dead. And then a few ones after that that weren't that good. There was Diary of the Dead. There were like 3 others after that, but he did other movies as well, but this is the one he was most known for. The zombie movies.
Hey, that's us. We're doing all right. Look, I don't know if you're hearing me, but I'm going upstairs now. If anything should try to break in here, I can hear it from up there. I'll be down to take care of it.
So as I was saying, I don't remember when I first saw the movie, but it was probably a while ago, and I had a VHS copy of it. And last year or so, I bought the Blu-ray Criterion Collection version of it. A brand new 4K restoration of the movie. It looks amazing. Okay, so right here, like this is minor but gruesome. Here's like the corpse of the original owner of the house. Earlier in the movie, Barbara was gonna go upstairs, and then she saw this like totally mutilated face that freaked her out, and it was her, the owner of the house. And here we don't see her face anymore, but we see the blood on the wall, and then has to drag her corpse away to secure the perimeter. So anyway, I bought the Blu-ray of it, and it's like beautiful high quality HD. Interestingly, like I said, the original version is not copyrighted, but the 4K restoration is. So that's the one you cannot stream, you cannot broadcast. The restored version, that one did get copyrighted 60 years later. But the original one from 1968 is not copyrighted, so that's why it's okay to stream. No one owns it.
Moments ago from Cumberland, Maryland, civil defense authorities have told newsmen that murder victims show evidence of having been partially devoured by their murderers. Medical examination of victims' bodies shows conclusively that the killers are eating the flesh of the people they kill.
Eating the flesh of the people they kill. So here's a news report, and they're trying to make sense of like what is going on. And what do we see here behind the door? Something's behind the door there. We thought that we had all locked up the door, the whole house properly, but something's behind the door. Oh no, it's just regular people, not to worry. Maybe. So here's 2 more main characters. What are the names again? Okay, the older guy, that's Mr. Cooper. And then the younger guy, I forget his name at the moment.
I could use some help up here.
That's the cellar. It's the safest place.
You mean you didn't hear the racket we were making up here?
How are we supposed to know what was going on? Could have been those things for all we knew.
That girl was screaming. Sure, you must know what a girl screaming sounds like. Those things don't make any noise. Anybody would know somebody ever needed help.
Look, it's kind of hard to hear what's going on.
Okay, so we see the other group of survivors. Okay, first it started off with Barbara and Johnny, but then they got separated, so then Barbara met with Ben, and then there were our main characters. After that, we see this other group in the basement, in the cellar of the house, and here they're arguing like, hey, why didn't you come and help us to board up the house? And
I'm not going to take that kind of a chance when we got a safe place. We luck into a safe place, and you're telling us we got to risk our lives just because somebody might need help, huh?
Yeah, something like that.
All right, why?
this is the classic, people against each other. Ben says, we're safe up here. Don't lock yourselves down in the basement. It's a dead end there. If the zombies get down there, we're stuck in the basement. And Cooper is like, this is the safest place. We can board up the door. We'll be safe down there. We'll be fine up here. We've got all of these windows and things to defend.
Can't get through this lousy pile of wood. His wife and kids downstairs. The kids hurt.
Well, I still
could strengthen everything up, Mr. Cooper.
With all of us working, we can fix this place up in no time. We have everything we need up here.
We can take all that stuff downstairs with us. Man, you're really crazy. You know that? You got 1,000,000 windows up here. All these windows, you're gonna make them strong enough to keep these things out, huh?
I told you those things don't have any strength. I smashed.
So that's what they're trying to argue about right there. What do you all think there in the chat? Would they be safer upstairs where they can board everything up, and if they need to, they can still escape? Or would they be safer downstairs? Downstairs has no other outside way to get away. So that's what they're kind of arguing about. What would you all think out there in chat land? Staying down at the underground or above where they can get away? If zombies were ever to come real, and smartest material to use, the berry would be steel, not wood. Definitely, yeah. Any sort of like really strong metal and stuff would be the best way to get to reinforce the thing. But you know, you have what you can. You work with what you have. But right there, they're still arguing. So what do you all think there in the chat? What would you do? Would you stay upstairs in a properly secured zone, and then if you can escape, just in case? Or would you go downstairs and into the basement where there's only one entrance and one exit?
Maybe 6 or 7.
Look, you two can do whatever you like. I'm going back down to the cellar, and you better decide. Because I'm going to board up that door, and I'm not going to unlock it again no matter what happens.
Now, wait a minute, Mr. Cooper.
No, I'm not going to wait. I've made my decision, now you make yours.
Now, wait a minute. Let's think about this. We can make it to the cellar if we have to. And if we do decide to stay down there, we'll need some things from up here. So let's at least consider this a while.
One of the great things about like a good zombie movie and such is, or a good survival or horror movie, is that dichotomy between the people. It's not just like the creatures, it's not just the natural disaster, it's not just the things out there that could make a good horror movie, but it's also the things that are, oh snap, it's coming right through the window. So I love like these sorts of things like this, like these, again, these dramatic things. Like there's the quiet part, there's the action part, and then there's the horror part, like right here, like just like stabbing it all up. Oh, cutting that hand up to pieces. Gnarly. Upstairs, kind of looks like a Black Ops game. Yeah, like these... The things that we have nowadays, you can see how they come from these early things. And look at that amazing squib work right there. You check upstairs quickly to see if there's an escape route before making a decision. The music is also really good. Let me turn it up. 2 shots to the gut and it's still coming. Like, again, this is early zombie lore. They don't know what's going on. But then, of course, they figure out headshot. That's the only way. And there's more of them coming there. Let's pause that for a quick moment. How many is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. And then there's like shirtless Kylo Ren there in the middle. So 15 of them. They've already killed like 5 of them. And here's like 15 more. And then here's the famous nude zombie. Because the reasoning behind that is like people died in a variety of ways, such as also on the operating table. You don't see it too much, but she's kind of got like surgery scars on her, so she died on the operating table. Just like the horror of it all. And it did a really good job of like starting all of these tropes. Now, some of it they still didn't fully figure out, like here's a zombie eating a bug. You don't quite see that as the modern lore of zombies. They mostly feast for human flesh. And they were still kind of figuring out a couple of things here and there. But zombies gotta eat.
Keep your hands off it. And everything else that's up here, too. Because if I stay up here, I'm fighting for everything up here. And the radio and the food is part of what I'm fighting for. Now, if you're going down the cellar, get.
The man's insane. He's insane. We've got to have food down there. We've got a right.
This is your house.
We've got a right.
You going down there with him?
Well,
Yes or no? This is your last chance. No beating around the bush.
Listen, I got a kid down there. She can't possibly... I couldn't bring her up here. She can't possibly take all the racket and those things smashing through the windows.
Well, you're her father. If you're stupid enough to go die in that trap, that's your business. However, I am not stupid enough to follow you.
So that's a big argument right here. And again, the subtones, the subtext of the movie is, yeah, it's like a zombie epidemic. Okay, yeah, but here we have, like, if we get to the deeper aspects of it, these socio-political aspects, it's not just a low-grade horror movie. This movie has transcended that. It is a commentary on the breakdown of society. Like, society is such a civil thing until push comes to shove, and then, like, we revert back to tribalism. We revert back to groups fighting each other for, like, scraps of society. Can people get along? Can people join together? We had to climb out of barbarity before, and now we have the pinnacle of society. And can it fall apart if we don't fight for it? And then, of course, like, racial tension. This is 1968, USA 1968. There were still riots going on in the streets. There was still people being murdered for the color of their skin. There was still racism. There had to be laws enacted. There had to be the federal guard, the National Guard, escorting young black children to school because racists wanted to kill them for visiting a white school. This was still happening in American society at that time. So there was a lot of subtext here. Here's, the Caucasian male lead and the African American male lead and all of that conflict in there. So why am I getting a phone call at 9 p.m.? Ooh, that's kind of scary. So cancel that. Anyway, kind of like the virus now. Yeah, if we keep our heads about it, we'll be fine, and I think we will. I think the fabric of society is strong enough in the West that we won't fall through the cracks, and we've built a civilization that is strong. We're living through interesting times, and we don't know what's going to happen, but this movie is sort of like an interesting snapshot of the time, a mirror of society, and so forth.
Let them stay upstairs. Let them. Too many ways those monsters can get in up there. We'll see who's right. We'll see when they come begging me to let them in down here.
That's important, isn't it?
What?
To be right, everybody else to be wrong.
What do you mean by that?
So Mr. Cooper, this is the second group of survivors. There's Mr. Cooper, there's his daughter, there's Mrs. Cooper, I think her name is Helen. She's been hurt. And then there's the young couple, I forget their names. But we've got the young couple. What's the young couple's name again? Tom and Judy. So the young couple is Tom and Judy. They ended up with Mr. and Mrs. Cooper and their daughter. So there was 5 of them, and they were there in the basement. You can bet that the girl lying down is going to be a zombie. She's just hurt. We don't know how and stuff, but she got hurt, and she's down there, so we'll see. And we can tell here that Mr. and Mrs. Cooper are kind of argumentative.
We may not enjoy living together, but dying together isn't going to solve anything.
Oh.
Those people aren't our enemies.
Mr. Cooper, Ben found a television set upstairs.
Let's go up. Tom? If Judy would come downstairs for a few minutes, Harry and I could come upstairs.
So if you read the trivia, these two actors are actually, I think, the producers of the movie and some of the financiers. So I think they helped put some of the money to make the movie, and there are a couple of actors in there, and they act pretty well. You wouldn't think that, like, non-actors would really do any good acting, but I think everyone does some pretty good acting in the movie. Especially Ben, of course. Mr. Cooper is a little too melodramatic, but you really get the sense that he's kind of a scared, desperate man, and like trying to hold on to power. And right here. So Judy, she's gonna come down and be with the girl while Mrs. Cooper goes upstairs to kind of watch the TV. Like, what's going on? Why is this all happening?
She's all I have. Why don't you go upstairs now?
The ratio of male to female characters is interesting. We've got the little girl, the young woman, the middle-aged lady, and Barbara. So that's 4 women. Then we've got Ben, Tom, and Mr. Cooper, 3 men. So we got 4 to 3.
My brother was killed.
Hey, give me a hand with this thing.
I gotta go help Ben with the television.
And it is a product of the time to various degrees that the women are not that strong in the movie. Barbara's like really still like completely shocked. She's there on the couch. Barbara's still very shocked about like what is going on. Where's my brother? Oh yeah, counting the brother as well. That was 6 characters, 3 male characters, and 4 male. Yeah, 4 to 4. A lot of smoking going on again. This is 1968. No big deal. Everyone's got a pack of cigs in their pocket at all times. Don't smoke, kids. You'll turn into a zombie.
Don't be afraid of me. I'm Helen Cooper, Harry's wife.
This place is ridiculous. Look at this. There's a million weak spots up here. Give me one of those.
Mr. Cooper, what a jerk. So the sequel, Dawn of the Dead, I actually met one of the actors at Comic-Con, Ken Foree, a few years ago at Comic-Con. I got his autograph. He plays a character there on the sequel, Dawn of the Dead, and I met him at Comic-Con. He signed his photo, and I have it over here somewhere. There's a little photo. But I never at Comic-Con I never met any of these other actors. Some of them kind of died young. Others have been around a while longer, and that's sort of a little bit of info there. My mom is sending WhatsApp messages of the tortillas she made, so that's kind of making me a little bit hungry. Okay, let's see the TV. What are they talking about this? Rabbit ears.
Reports, incredible as they seem, are not the results of mass hysteria.
Mass hysteria. What do they think? We're imagining all this? Shut up!
In all parts of the country. The wave of murder which is sweeping the eastern third of the nation is being committed by creatures who feast upon the flesh of their victims. First eyewitness accounts of this grisly development came from people who were understandably frightened and almost incoherent. Officials and newsmen at first discounted those eyewitness descriptions as being beyond belief. However, the reports persisted. Medical examinations of some of the victims bore out the fact that they had been partially devoured.
So they're trying to get a handle on the situation, like what is going on with these reanimated corpses? What's the news saying? What do we do about it?
It has been established that persons who have recently died have been returning to life and committing acts of murder. A widespread investigation of reports from funeral homes, morgues, and hospitals has concluded that the unburied dead are coming back to life and seeking human victims. It's hard for us here to believe what we're reporting to you, but it does seem to be a fact. When this emergency first began, radio and television was advising people to stay inside, behind locked doors for safety. Well, that situation is now...
I think one of the strong things about this movie is that it is to a degree in sort of a cinema verite style. Meaning they have like handheld shots of things at times with like a shaky camera, like you're there. There's aspects of like documentary. Right here, the main characters this is so meta. If you kind of look at, on my stream here, I'm streaming on a TV that they're watching a TV. But the main characters are, have to keep up to date with what's going on in the zombie epidemic, so they turn on the TV, they turn on the media, like, tell us what's going on. You're living the slow-paced storytelling. Yeah, it's much slower paced than other movies where it's like constant action and that sort of thing. There are like these bursts of action. Right now, it's a little bit slow in terms of let's watch the news, like what's going on. Let me back up just a quick moment right here. This is an interesting plot point. Let's listen to this.
Why are space experts being consulted about an earthbound emergency? So far, all the betting on the answer to that question centers on the recent Explorer satellite shot to Venus. That satellite, you'll recall, started back to Earth, but never got here. That's the space vehicle which orbited Venus and then was purposely destroyed by NASA when scientists discovered it was carrying a mysterious high-level radiation with it. Could that radiation...
So it's never fully explained, but up to this point, they start to say, well, how did this happen? How are these corpses coming to life? There was a satellite of some sort of radiation that exploded and fell on Earth, and possibly that caused it. And here they're talking with scientists and such. Oh yeah, this is the thing. Yeah, the director, George Romero, he's one of these. That's a good point there, Stevie. So this is the part where he's at. He's the one on the left, all the way to the left. The director of this movie is this news reporter there holding the microphone all the way to the left. So this is a classic thing right here. Scientists and the military personnel, they're like arguing like, what is going on? How do we deal with it? Trying to explain what's going on. And this is the part about it being cinema verite, like the camera's handheld. If you read the trivia, it's like they weren't authorized to actually record in Washington, D.C. So it's like this is not a set, this is like real. You have to get your permits and all of that to properly shoot a movie somewhere. So basically the directors were like, okay, let's shoot this part. Let's get out of the car. Let's do this part. Let's do it. Run into the car. Let's get out of here before we have to pay for it.
It does seem to have a bearing. Will there be a reply for the later? Yes. There will be a reply. Yes. Later this afternoon.
So it's got this like live action documentary aspect of things.
Perhaps there will be a report. A later report. Will you close the window? We are doing everything possible to solve the problem.
We are doing everything possible to solve this. This is the classic, like, no one knows what's going on. Everyone's just going to try to figure out as they go along. As this epidemic of zombies progresses, like, no one's got an answer. And those that are supposed to be in charge, they don't know what's going on either. And it's revealed that probably this satellite that was coming to Earth had some weird radiation, and that might be causing the issue.
We came in and found the lady upstairs dead. Then these other people came. We went down into the basement and put a bar across the door, and it is pretty strong.
How could we possibly get away from here? We've got a sick child, 2 women, 1 woman out of her head, 3 men, and the place is surrounded with these things.
Dr. Grimes, your entire staff, I know, has been working very hard to find some solution to these things that are happening.
So this movie is 90 minutes long, an hour and a half, and we've watched an hour of it so far. If you look at back in the totality of it, there was the beginning shot or the beginning scene in the cemetery when we first see the zombies. Then there's the running from the zombies, getting to the farmhouse, meeting Ben. Then there's then there's like boarding up the house, strengthening the position, and then meeting the second group of survivors. All of that's in this first hour. We have 30 minutes left in the movie. What do you all think about it? If you've been watching since I put it on, what do you think about the pacing of it? I know you said, Stevie, the slower pace of it. It's kind of cool. That's how much we've gotten so far through this movie. Within the hour, we've seen all of those plot points. Within the last half hour, what do you think we still have left to see?
She hasn't seen anything. I don't understand. Baby. It's Mommy.
Liliana from Magic.
I'll come back down as soon as I find out what they want.
Thank you, Judy.
The body should be disposed of at once, preferably by cremation.
Well, how long after death, then, does the body become reactivated?
It's only a matter of minutes.
Minutes? Well, that doesn't give people time to make any arrangements.
Oh, you're right. It doesn't give them time to make funeral arrangements. The bodies must be carried to the street and burned. They must be burned immediately. Soak them with gasoline and burn them. The bereaved will have to forego the dubious comforts at a funeral service.
So here they're revealing, corpses, people that die, if they're not immediately disposed of within minutes, they start coming back to life. Again, 1968, this is these concepts of the zombie genre were already starting to get laid out 60 years ago. We're seeing this, of course, in the zombie movies of the 80s, of the 90s, 2000s, The Walking Dead, the comic books. All of this stuff really comes back to this original movie from 60 years, variations of it. The big change in the early 2000s in the zombie movies and the remake of the movie was the fast zombies. For a long time, it was these slow-moving zombies. And kind of like the most recent aspect of zombies has been these fast zombies, like the ones from 28 Days Later and the Dawn of the Dead remake, that they were fast zombies. I always like the slow ones, the slow zombies, because that's what's logic to me in terms of these are decaying bodies. They're not going to be running around like normal people. And what they're talking about right here is, well, we got to get out of here. My truck is almost out of gas, but there's a little gas pump on the property of this farm. So they're planning, let's go fill up that gas tank. Let's get this car gassed up and get all the supplies and just drive out of here, because they're just going to keep coming and we might be trapped here. So that's what they're planning to do. Because there's been rescue stations set up.
When this emergency is over, we will need many, many more such rescue stations.
You always have a smile for me. How can you smile like that all the time? How many do you have done?
So they're preparing for this escape. They decide, okay, the news is telling us there are these safe zones. So let's get to the safe zones, but we need to gas up the truck and then get the supplies and get everyone on the truck. There's 6 people in total to get in this truck, but the truck's getting low on gas, so they need to go get to the gas pump at the edge of the property. So what they're going to do is they're going to kind of try to clear a path, clear some of the zombies out to get to the gas pump, and then fuel up and then be on their way.
I don't know.
Come on, honey, you're starting to sound like Mr. Cooper now.
But why do you have to go out there?
Look, I know how to handle that truck, and I can handle the pump. Ben doesn't know anything about that stuff.
But we're safe in here.
For how long, honey? We're safe now, but there's going to be more and more of those things.
I know all that.
So those are the things that you ask yourself as you watch the movie. Okay, in the beginning it was, are we safer upstairs where we can make a getaway, or are we safer downstairs? There's the pros and cons of that. Now they have the choice here that they hear, well, there's safe zones. Do we stay here and we might be safe either upstairs or downstairs, or do we try to get in that truck and get out of here? So what would you think they're in the chat? Stay in the house, hunker down, reinforce it, and just wait for help? Or try to get that truck gassed up, get the materials and the supplies there, and get out of there? So would you want to stay or go, or try to get to the safe zone? What would you think?
You're showing no use at all, aren't you? We've got work to do, honey. And you...
We better get her downstairs.
We have to go downstairs now, Barbara.
She's right. You have to go downstairs now, just for a little while until we get back. Then we can all leave.
Oh, I'd like to leave. Yes.
You vote for go out. That could be a viable strategy, definitely, if everyone coordinates and works together and knows what they need to do.
Good luck.
So that's the plan. They're gonna go gas up the truck. Once that's ready, then they're gonna get out. Your mom says, you made a bad decision that seems to work out in the end. Alright, then you gotta be on my team. I want your bad decisions to help me out. So the characters range from, the older couple, Helen and Harry Cooper. Then there's the younger couple, Tom and Judy. There's the little girl. So it's like a big range of generations within the movie, so I think that's a good range there.
You ready upstairs? Yeah. Okay, toss him.
Now that's real fire, real acting with real fire. You try to make a best decision depending on your situation and materials. So they're throwing out Molotov cocktails there. Again, real acting, like real fire. They threw real fire near those actors. Check that out. Real Molotov cocktails. And the actor has to light it up and pull it back and throw it out. And you better do that right. Ooh, that actor right there got totally flamed. Alright, they're gonna go for it. This is one of the... Again, there was like low points and then high points in action. Here's one of the high points. Like, for a 60-year-old movie, yeah, it's melodramatic here and there, but it's still this, like, sense of... This sense of... violence. So Judy wants to go help, actually, so she runs out with them. More people trying to get this job done would be better, of course. And, the music also, I think, works well with the visuals. Again, it's... If you read the trivia, this music actually, most of it is not original music. Most of this music had come from other movies. Again, it was a very low-budget movie, so it's like they didn't really make new music. They got music from other movies to put onto this, so I'd love to hear how the music was on the other movies. But here, I think it fits perfectly. So Cooper will take a sniper position. There they are at the edge of the property where they can go fill up the gas tank.
Come on! This key won't work. Watch out.
So it was the wrong key, but okay, they got the gas tank ready to go. Watch out for that. Oh man, they got all that gasoline. Watch out for the torch, and now the gasoline is spilled. And again, that's real acting with real fire. There's the actor trying to put out that real fire. No CGI fire here. But that was a big mistake there. They weren't careful with the... They weren't careful with the gasoline and open flame. Oh, man. That truck blew up. So 2 survivors done for. plus their getaway vehicle. That's a lot of trouble there, and the hordes are relentless. You gotta go for the head, Ben! Headshot! Totally surrounded. Not good. That's a lot of zombies already. As you pan around here, that's a lot of them. So a shot like that, where there's like a very little bit of light, everything is darkness, surrounded by darkness, and then he's trying to get back. So at least he's safe back at the house. The front door seems to be locked. And they're still coming. But Cooper chickens out and he leaves Ben there. So okay, he didn't quite chicken out, but Cooper should have opened the door for him right away. And now more of the zombies are coming. So there's way more zombies out there and they know where they're at. So as soon as they understand where they're at, they're like coming for you. But I guess for the moment you're safe. And Ben is pissed. It's like, why did you leave me out there? He's totally... So once again, it's not just the external. It's not just the external horrors out there, but it's like the inside of it. Now watch this horrific scene right here. The zombies are going to eat the remains of Judy and Tom. They're all scorched up in the truck, and here come the zombies still to feast. Now cover your eyes right here. This is some of the most gruesome part in the whole movie. Now it's all in black and white, so you don't see the blood in color. And obviously we see much more violent stuff nowadays, but even this, you know, from 60 years ago, look at these corpses. Oh my god, look at that. They're fighting over the guts of the dead characters. And then that close-up of, like, really chomping down on it, like, wow. Obviously, it's a movie. But even that, it's like, that is really disturbing. Just totally chomping down on Tom and Judy. And that's a hand. Imagine, and then that guy's all dead. 1968. So right there, Ben's, like, about to barf. Like, I would be too. 1968. Never before a movie like this, and obviously way more over the top nowadays with full color, but even that in black and white, your mind, I think, much more fills in the blanks of the horror.
There's supposed to be another broadcast at 3 o'clock.
10 minutes.
Oh, only 10 more minutes? We don't have very long to wait.
So this movie got remade in 1990. The story behind that is that, so George Romero was the director, and he wanted the special effects done by this guy named Tom Savini. And he was like really good at special effects. But Tom Savini could not do the movie because he got drafted to go fight in the Vietnam War. So Tom Savini went to the Vietnam War where he saw some stuff. When he came back from the war, he went into Hollywood movies, special effects, and he is known as one of the most amazing special effects creators, especially for horror movies. So his time in the war informed him about like how to make realistic wounds and blood and all of that. So Tom Savini was supposed to work on this movie. He went to war instead. And then he came back later. So then the sequel of this from 1978, Dawn of the Dead, Tom Savini then did do the special effects for it, and they were even more gory and violent. And this was 1978. This was in color. 10 years later. So if you ever see that, the sequel, Dawn of the Dead, it is way more violent. And Tom Savini worked on it as well as being an actor in it. Then in 1990, Tom Savini directed the remake of this movie. So he took his skills as the actor, as the director, to redo the movie. There's the nude zombie again right there. So that's interesting, that his story behind the movie as well. And right here they're still totally munching on the characters.
Being monitored closely by scientists at all the radiation detection stations. At this hour, they report the level of the mysterious radiation continues to increase steadily. So long as this situation remains, government spokesmen warn that dead bodies will continue to be transformed into the flesh-eating ghouls. All persons who die during this crisis, from whatever cause, will come back to life to seek human victims unless their bodies are first disposed of by cremation.
So that sounds familiar, that any person that dies within the current situation will come back as a zombie. So that's the big reason here, how that is happening, that it's this radiation, and it's like blanketing the Earth. There was a satellite that went to Venus, and then when it came back, it was like full of radiation, so NASA destroyed it before it went to Earth. But whoops, we destroyed it, and it went into the atmosphere, and so it's covering the globe, and now everyone that dies comes back. Now here they're talking about these local militias that have been deputized to take care of the zombies.
No, we're all right. Hey, Cass, put that thing all the way in the fire. We don't want it getting up again. All right, I got you.
Chief McClellan, how's everything going?
Oh, things aren't going too bad. Men are taking it pretty good. You want to get on the other side of the road over there?
Chief, do you think we'll be able to defeat these things?
Well, we killed 19 of them today right in this area. Those last 3 we caught trying to claw their way into an abandoned shed. They must have thought somebody was in there. There wasn't, though. We heard them making all kind of noise. We came over and beat them off, blasted them down. Chief, as soon as you're finished, can I see you here? Yeah, okay.
Chief, if I were surrounded by 6 or 8 of these things, would I stand a chance with them?
Well, there's no problem. If you had a gun, shoot them in the head. That's a sure way to kill them. If you don't, get yourself a club or a torch. Beat them or burn them. They go up pretty easy.
Well, Chief McClellan, how long do you think it will take you until you get the situation under control?
Well, that's pretty hard to say. We don't know how many of them there are. We know when we find them, we can kill them.
Are they slow-moving, Chief?
Yeah, they're dead. They're all messed up.
Well, in time, would you say you...
So, once again, the classic aspect of it, you gotta shoot them in the head, you gotta burn them in the fire, don't get surrounded by them. Here we're seeing, okay, interesting, like, commentary here, if you think about it. So, what is working is like a local group joining together with weapons to fight them off. What isn't is like the response from like the federal level, that like the higher ups can't get it working, so we got to do it ourselves together. And here, like, the lights are out, the lights went out, the power cables have been cut and such, so heightening it even more. Now they've lost their contact with the TV and the radio.
Get that gun.
Haven't you had enough?
Look, 2 people are dead already on account of that guy. Take a look out that window.
So Cooper's planning to get the gun away from Ben. Now, again, they were still figuring it out. And here is a part that doesn't quite work with modern zombie lore. They're using tools. They're trying to break into the house now with rocks and clubs and such. If they didn't have that part of it, I think it would be a lot stronger, because they could still just be pounding and clawing at the doors, like the ones in the background there. So ignore that part. We can retcon it away, we can headcanon it away that they are newly dead. That's why they're still able to use tools, like that one. Although he didn't use it very well, right? He just kind of tossed it like that. Now, one of the things is, I think, what do you think about that in the chat? Was Ben justified in shooting Cooper? Like, Cooper's obviously been a sniveling coward, antagonistic, a loose cannon, and there he was gonna take the gun and take over, and Ben is like, "You're done, man." And here Helen's about to get gotten by the zombies. Finally, Barbara snaps out of it, ready to help. Oh, the daughter did come back to life. The daughter came back to life, and now she's eating the dad. Isn't that the scariest thing right there? A zombie child. Again, super controversial. Again, using tools, I'm not a big fan of that, but you saw that coming? What about a zombie child stabbing her daughter, stabbing her own mother to death? You saw that coming? Oh, horrific. This is a part that you gotta cover your eyes. And again, that chocolate syrup. I mean blood. Look at all that blood. So completely controversial. A child viciously murdering their own parent. A zombified child murdering their parent. There's the original zombie from the beginning. And that's Johnny! Johnny! Her brother! Her brother is dead and back as a zombie! Zombified brother. So now brother devouring sister. Child killing parent. Siblings killing siblings. The decay of society. And then there's the original zombie. And then the zombie girl, she's back. Ben, watch out. Oh, that's terrifying. So the only place left back in the basement. That's the only place is going to be safe then after all, perhaps. Upstairs didn't work, now it's being overrun. Is the door gonna hold? They busted in through the top floor, but is it gonna hold? Double boarding it. He might make it. He might make it after all. But don't forget the Coopers. Oh, man. Oh, here comes Mr. Cooper. Three shots. He's like, Cooper, you doomed us all. Mrs. Cooper. So it's just him there now, in the dead end of the cellar. No one else, just by himself. Corpses. minimal supplies. I don't think there's even any supplies down there. That's what Cooper was arguing about. And just a house full of zombies. Now, this is 1 hour 30 minutes, and it lasts 1 hour 36 minutes. 6 minutes left in this movie. We have the day breaking. Perhaps nice and calm after the horror of the night of the living dead. It's either a police or news helicopter surveying the situation, still semblances of society. And here we have the local militia, the local armed regular people. Again, what's the commentary here? That who will help us but each other, perhaps? The breakdown of the higher level of things. Although, you know, the police department is at that higher level of civilization. Are we going to see some zombie dogs?
Hey, Vince, Al, you want to get about 4 or 5 men and a couple dogs? There's a house over here behind those trees. We want to go check it out. Frank, you stay here, Bill.
Yeah, Chief, we're going to stay with it till we meet up with the National Guard.
Where'd you get the coffee?
One of the volunteers, you're doing all the work, you take it.
Thank you. We should be wrapped up here about 3 or 4 more hours. We'll probably get into Willard then. I guess you can go over there and meet the National Guard. Nick, you and the rest of these men want to come with me?
Tell Bill to check in the office, see what's happening. All right, Steve, tell him we're going to stay with it, and everything appears to be under control.
The hellhounds. I watched Resident Evil Part 1 the other day, and that's where we have some epic hellhounds. So Ben's still there in the basement. How must it have been that whole night with just like the dead shambling around? Upstairs, no food. Downstairs, all by yourself. Here comes the rescue party. There's still a few of those zombies around.
Somebody had a cookout here, Vince.
Yeah, sure looks like it, Cal.
That's the truck where Judy and Tom were burnt up, so they're getting closer to the farm there. So here comes the rescue team. Cleanup operations on these final zombies. So again, the ups and downs of the movie, like the violence, the gore, the calm, up and down. And then the final ending here with the rescue party.
Tony, Steve, you want to get out in that field and build me a bonfire?
So just hours ago, that whole house was just full of the zombies. And Ben is the only one that's made it so far, after everyone else that was with him.
You, drag that out of here and throw it on the fire. Nothing down here? All right, go ahead down and give him a hand. Let's go check out the house.
There's something there. I heard a noise.
All right, Vince, hit him in the head, right between the eyes. Good shot. Okay, he's dead.
Ben
Let's go get him. That's another one for the fire.
is dead. Extremely bleak ending. Every character died. Ben was this close to surviving. And the rescue party shoots first, asks questions later. Ben, who suffered all of this time, Dwayne Jones, he didn't make it. Mistaken for a zombie, shot in the head. And the political commentary here, a black man killed by a white posse. This, unfortunately, wasn't just a movie. This was real in the southern United States, the history of this nation. There's some ugly parts of it. And here, this movie is challenging you that all of the characters that you identified with, they're all dead. They all didn't make it. And Ben, he's gonna get tossed in the fire like the rest of the corpses, the rest of the zombies. And then there he is with the original zombie. If you note, that's the original zombie at the beginning of the movie. They're both right there, dead. I think this is still a powerful, disturbing film, and nihilistic. We think of cinema and TV nowadays as like perhaps cynical or downbeat and such. This was a 60-year-old movie. This was a 60-year-old movie that, how does it end? All of the main characters are dead. Very bleak ending and extremely controversial. But it started this zombie genre, and it kept it going 60 years later. We would have The Walking Dead and the various movies and comic books and novels and all of that. There had been zombies before this. They were usually like people under a spell that were being controlled. But here is actually like corpses coming back to life. So that's it. That's the movie. 1 hour, 35 minutes. Zombieland. Yeah, exactly. And the sequel. George A. Romero's film from 1968, preserved by the Library of Congress, the National Registry of the United States, is a culturally relevant. Yeah, it didn't feel like an hour and a half, and there it is. Preserved to be culturally relevant with many other works of cinema. So, public domain film. A film that wasn't properly copyrighted, so you are free to watch the movie like we just did together, like this. What do you all think there? What do you think about that ending? I thought it was, when I first saw it, it's still affecting, even seeing it again and like talking about it and being with people and streaming. It's still very affecting. It's like, I think it's a very powerful ending, a very sad ending. He was this close. He was this close to making it after all that he went through, and accidentally he was taken down like one of the zombies and tossed in the fire. And this final, let me play the final ending part again right here, where it's just like a series of still shots after the movement of it all. Let me go back here. After the movement of it all, the ending of it shifts over to just photos, still photos with this haunting music. It was unexpected. He should have spoken up. Who knows like what a person would react to it. So this ending right here is just photos, and it's like morgue photos, close-ups of like these meat hooks and his body, and dragging it out to the fire. And then the ending, unceremoniously just tossed in the fire. So if you had never seen this movie before, there you go. You saw Night of the Living Dead, classic movie. If you had seen it before, hopefully you had a little fun checking it out with me. I wanted to kind of do a little movie night. We're all at home, doing the best that we can during these times. I'd like to do more of these perhaps, but the problem is that there's not a lot of movies that are public domain that we can hang out and watch together. You know, we can't watch like a fun Disney movie together. We can't watch The Lion King together. That's completely copyrighted. We cannot do that. If each of us watches The Lion King on our own TVs and talks about it here, that's possible, but we can't actually show it or the sound. But this is one of the movies that I wanted to show. Copyright-free, public domain, and just hanging out with people. So I'm going to be back on my stream to play some Magic tomorrow, and hopefully everyone's having a pleasant enough time as we shelter in place and think about life and moving forward and so forth. Thanks everyone for hanging out. Any final thoughts before we wrap up for the night? Probably going to get some... I should have made some popcorn. I should have made some popcorn and gotten a soda. Thank you for hanging out as well. Hopefully you come back tomorrow. I'm changing my streams, my regular game streams. I was doing them at 11 p.m. I'm going to try it for a little while at 8 p.m., so maybe not as late as other times, so everyone should adjust to their time zones. And I'll be back tomorrow to play some Magic at 8 o'clock, maybe some one-on-ones and so forth. If anyone wants to do some Magic gameplay versus to me, you should update your game. There's a big update that just happened. You're in for Magic tomorrow? Yeah, great. So, I think that'll do it for the moment. Rest in peace, George A. Romero. When did he pass on? Let's see, just a couple years ago here. George Romero died in 2017. So rest in peace, the father of the modern zombie movies. You should check out his other movies as well. I'd like to stream the other sequels, but those are not copyright free, so we can't. But yep, thanks everyone for hanging out. If this is your first time hanging out with me, I usually do game streams focused on Magic Arena, Magic the Gathering. Come by every Saturday at 8 p.m. Pacific Time. We'll play some Magic, we'll have some fun. And that's it. This has been VM Campos, and I will see you next time.